Good evening, Who Dat Nation, and happy Wednesday on a Thursday to our Bayou Blitz family. We want to thank you all for joining us for a rescheduled broadcast of your Bayou Blitz podcast. Uh, with apologies, I am one of your sickly co-hosts, Bob Rose. Is still extremely under the weather, so you have to excuse the coughing and hacking and sniffing and snorting. But I'll be with you as best I can. Joining me is a much healthier version of the twosome of us, Mr. Brendan Boylan. Brendan, happy Wednesday on a Thursday.
Yeah, you as well. Thank you guys for rescheduling a little bit with us.
Uh-oh.
There we go. Congratulations on getting your bachelor's degree. Celeste, pretty cool, pretty ironic. Her husband graduated from Purdue, crossed the same stage 42 years earlier. So props to getting your degree in your 60s, something you always wanted. So we took over her last night. So thank you guys for hanging out with us as we reschedule. You said healthier. I think I'm physically healthier, mentally healthier. I don't know. That's a little bit up for debate. We've had some.
No, it isn't.
This week. Okay, so you're worse. Bob's like, nah, dude, you're worse than me.
No, it isn't. I wipe you out on poor physical health, poor mental health, and poor emotional health. And my friend, it's not even close. I'm confident in saying that. But that segues us in, to some people that the Bayou Blitzes work closely with for the last several months, and will continue to do so over the next year. The Get Checked or Check Out Foundation. If you followed us, if you followed Brendan and I, you know that we are proud. The Bayou Blitz is proud to be part of promoting Get Checked or Check Out. The foundation was co-founded by Shireen DeWalt and has several former New Orleans Saints superstars, legends, not only on the gridiron but as human beings as well. And we could both, Brendan and I, can attest to that. They for 11 straight years, the Get Checked or Check Out has sponsored the Go Black and Gold Celebrity Charity Fan Cruise. We were lucky enough to be on said cruise this year, along with Delvin Bro, Tyrone Hughes, Michael Lewis, Courtney Roby, Pierre Thomas. Such a great experience, and I know that we pumped that up in the months leading up to it, and we will continue to do so once we have the specific dates and destinations for next year's cruise. But we're going to be promoting Get Checked or Check Out all year long. And that's especially important to us because they want to use a different month on a different health issue to focus on. And May is Mental Health Awareness Month. Mental health awareness helps people recognize the ways that mental illness, impacts their lives, educates people about available services, and highlights ways to advocate even if they don't have a mental illness. The recognition and education are important ways to remove the stigma that's associated with mental illness. Talking openly about your mental health can reduce the misconceptions and stigma, but also encourage those who are suffering to seek help and find a support network. It's important for everyone to understand the impact that mental health has on daily life. When people are better educated on these conditions, they can better support and help someone that's also dealing with a mental health issue. Mental Health Awareness Month also provides opportunity for fundraising, outreach, and awareness events. In turn, this can also help support research, fund treatment options, and connect advocates to create a more promising future in mental health care. Everyone can benefit from Mental Health Awareness Month. Nearly 1 in 5 adults within the United States has some sort of mental health condition. And that person also has families and friends who are affected by that condition as well, even if they themselves don't suffer from one. Anxiety disorders, major depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, bipolar disorders, borderline personality, obsessive compulsive disorder, schizophrenia. 93 million suffer from at least one of these. That's tremendous. And get checked or check out helps those with the condition overcome the stigma and get access to treatment. The organization also helps friends and family to better understand the condition and connect with support networks themselves. Get checked or check out also helps treatment providers receive funding for care and research, but they need our help, folks. Check out the Get Checked or Check Out website on our Bayou Blitz page and help us be a part of the solution.
Yeah, tremendous. Mental Health Awareness Month is close to my heart as well. For those of you who don't know, or those of you that do, my parents were founders of a nonprofit surrounding helping families find resources for mental health. Kind of going in the same idea of get checked or check out. Something happens, a diagnosis happens, and people don't know where to turn to. My parents founded an organization, Navigate Hope, for that, and it has now trickled into my father's coffee business and Blend of Hope, which proceeds are donated to some of those resources to help out as many people as possible. So, yeah, like Bob said, I mean, mental health affects everybody, and everybody can benefit from understanding not just your own potential mental health things, but also other people's, whether it be family, what have you. Do the research, connect with Shireen and everything that she's doing as well to better help yourself and others. Really important month, and so I'm glad that we talked about that a little bit. Obviously, Bob and I like to cut up and joke, and even joke there at the top about our own mental health at this time. But it is important, and it's important to take care of yourself and also be there for your friends and family as well. Bob, let's talk about some football. This is kind of the dead part of the year, we kind of say, in journalism. Also, for you, the fans, there's not a whole lot of new news coming out. Nothing hot, nothing breaking for the most part when it comes to your team. And hopefully, this is actually a fairly normal stretch. I don't feel like the Saints have had a normal offseason for a long time, so we'll call it a stretch. We do have an official roster for rookie minicamp, which is exciting. You also have a list of tryout players. Obviously, your rookie minicamp roster is going to be your draft picks, your undrafted guys, some guys that are on the roster from a season ago that maybe spent most of the year on the practice squad, and then a handful of tryout players. And this is exciting, Bob, because you don't know this list of tryout players.
I don't.
So I get to read them off. There's very, very few times where we hop onto a podcast and I have something newsworthy that Bob doesn't know about yet. That's what happens. This news came out probably 30 minutes before we got hopped on. So if that, so let's go ahead and read the list. This from the New Orleans Saints themselves. Tryout players: linebacker Brendan Bell from Villanova, defensive lineman Brandon Brown from UTSA, defensive back Tyrell Burgess from Utah, defensive back Javon Bird from Northern Illinois. Yes, it's spelled the same way. And
too close. Cut him.
And he's wearing number 31.
Oh, God, of course he is.
Yeah, so wide receiver Chris Carpenter out of UTSA. Defensive back Eric Cumberbatch out of Ottawa. Wide receiver Roderick Daniels Jr. from SMU.
Mm-hmm.
Quarterback Hunter Deckers from Iowa Western. Defensive lineman Patrick Jenkins from Tulane. Wide receiver Leon Johnson III from Oklahoma State. Big-bodied guy at 6'5". Long snapper Logan Klussman from Kansas. Offensive lineman Joey Lombard from South Dakota. Defensive back Travis Martin from Langston. A tall DB at 6'3".
Mm.
Probably my favorite name on this list, and I brought it up before we got on just because of the name itself, and that's Donovan Peoples-Jones, wide receiver from Michigan. Defensive back Cameron Watts from New Mexico, and last but not least, Holden Willis, wide receiver, Middle Tennessee State. Donovan Peoples-Jones, I think, was the one that stood out to me. One, because it is a name that I would say a handful of football fans recognize, but it's a bigger body guy at receiver. And if we've been beating a dead horse about something, it has been that. Bob, outside of Donovan Peoples-Jones, we can talk about him if you'd like. Is there any other names that really stick out on this list to you?
Roderick, the receiver from SMU, and his teammate, Moochie Davis, was also. Let me make sure I got that last name right. Moochie Dixon, excuse me. His teammate at SMU, wide receiver as well. So the Saints brought in both SMU starting wideouts from last year. So I find that kind of interesting. Although they're clones of what the Saints already have on the field. Smaller guys, deep threats, speed burners. But we all know the success rate that the Saints have had with late round draft choices and undrafted wideouts, in recent years. And when I say recent years, I mean like the last 20 years, less than 20. So I call that recent. So I'm not going to discount any of these guys. And fans, you shouldn't either, just because it's someone that you might not have heard of. Who heard of Rashid Shaheed a couple years ago? I didn't, and I do some pretty extensive draft research. And when I flipped on the tape after they signed Rashid, a couple years, 3 years back, I came away very impressed, especially with his kick return abilities, and obviously that's translated over into a very successful NFL career. So don't discount any of these guys. They could surprise us. And you never know when you have the next Pierre Thomas or the next Lance Moore or the next Rashid Shaheed. And I will always give the Saints organization credit for being probably the foremost NFL franchise in giving these overlooked collegiate guys a shot. So I'm going to be very interested to see how competitive these rookie mini camps and OTAs are going to be.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you said what you did when it comes to the Saints as an organization. I mean, maybe we're a little biased because we've covered the team for so long and we've seen a success rate at a really high level. But you're absolutely right. Like, this is a team that has not just utilized, but succeeded in undrafted free agents, day 3 guys, as you kind of alluded to, guys maybe you had never heard of prior. And that's important. I do want to talk about the veteran guy, Donovan Peoples-Jones. Remember, just a few years ago, 800-plus receiving yards season, Cleveland. Struggled with his health the last few years in Cleveland, and then Detroit, only playing in about half the games he could. But you want a prime example of giving guys opportunities. I mean, look at MVS last year for the Saints, who went and got a decent contract afterwards. But it was, we've referenced this year a lot, but 2 years ago, the Saints just signed every receiver possible. I would really like if the Saints did that again. But Donovan Peoples-Jones is a guy where you see that name and you go, oh, he's trying out. Like, should be a shoo-in, to at least get invited to training camp, right? Nothing's guaranteed. Right. However, if he's healthy and he's available and he's anything like the player that we saw in Cleveland a few years ago, you go, yeah, that's a guy you definitely bring into camp and allow to compete for a spot on the roster. We're not talking about a starting spot. but a guy who could be your fifth, sixth receiver on a roster, that would be huge to get a veteran guy like that. So some good names there. They did bring in 3 receivers that were standing at least 6'2". That's a big deal. However, on the same token, you don't necessarily want to really rely on undrafted free agent guys to be a big body pass catcher that you need on the roster. I keep going back to, and I still think it was one of the weirder handled situations in recent memory. And frankly, I don't know how much he's had success elsewhere. But the whole A.T. Perry situation, going back to that, very odd, bizarre.
Yes.
But you look at that and you go, man, could we have used an A.T. Perry last year? Yeah. Could you use an A.T. Perry on the roster right now? Yeah, you could. Something else had to have happened. But I digress. You're still looking for a guy like that. And A.T. Perry, a late-round pick himself, and showed flash. But you're still looking for that type of player on this team, which is a good segue into what's left in free agency. You don't want to say it's scraps or crumbs. There are some guys at certain positions where you look at it and go, you know what? Yeah, like that would be a player that New Orleans or really any team in the league could certainly use. But there's a reason they're still free agents. And I think you and I are the first to say that in 95% of the scenarios for these players is, well, there's a reason. It may not be a reason we all agree with, but there's a reason they're still available at this point. Let's start at receiver because we were just talking about it, and we'll kind of work our way around. I was waiting for you to text me about the graphic that I made too with the player that I used in our graphic. If it was a need, because that was a position of need, it still is. But we'll work our way there. Wide receiver. Look, I think your 1, 2, 3 is pretty evident, right? Olave, Shaheed, Brandon Cooks. However, Chris Olave is the tallest player out of the 3, and he's like 6 foot on a good day. Maybe 6'1" in cleats on a great day. That brings some issues. So who is still available? Who are some guys that you have to eye on to go, you know what? It may not be a match made in heaven, but sometimes the food that the restaurant's about to throw out, and they go, hey, do you want this before we throw it out? It's still the best. That's still the best, right? I'm guilty, right? You pull up to Krispy Kreme, or in your case, Bob, you pull up to a Dunkin' Donuts, and they're like, hey, we're about to throw these donuts out. You want a free dozen? You're like, hell yeah, bro. I want a free dozen donuts. And they're still as delicious as the freshly made ones sometimes. And other
well, I mean, given the insulting paychecks that I'm getting from the idiots that are supposed to be paying me, or the idiot that still owes me a bunch of money, I'll take free donuts right now for sure.
Do I chime
but
in? Do I piggyback off that, or do I just not?
It's your call. I for anybody that knows me, I don't burn bridges. I go nuclear, and I'm real close right now.
Okay, well, one of those people still owes Brendan a ton of money as well. So, let's start with wide receivers. And like you said, the first top three looking at the depth chart is pretty easy. I keep telling people don't overlook Bub Means. Last year's 5th round rookie was coming along very nicely before he got hurt. Now, unfortunately, he got hurt the same week that they lost Olave. Bub and Chris were both lost for the rest of the year, and that came the week after losing Rashid Shaheed for the rest of the year. So if you're questioning why the Saints should or shouldn't turn over every rock in the known universe looking for wide receiver talent, a look at last year's wide receiving unit after week 8 tells you all you need to know. But I mean, even Bub Means in college was one of the best contested catch receivers in not only the ACC
but throughout the entire NCAA. So he's not a bigger guy, but he's a physical guy, and that's really outside of his development. The Saints don't have anybody else on the roster at wide receiver that can do that. Therefore, the three receivers that I'm looking at in free agency, everybody wants to talk about Keenan Allen. The ones that don't want to talk about Keenan Allen want to talk about Amari Cooper. I can see why, especially when it comes to the Saints, because both Keenan Allen played for Kellen Moore. Not just Kellen Moore, but Kellen Moore, Doug Nussmeier, and Scott Tolzien. All three were offensive assistants with the Chargers when Keenan Allen was there for a year. Amari Cooper played under all three of those guys as offensive assistants with the Dallas Cowboys for 4 years. So I see why people want to talk about them. I'm watching Tyler Boyd too. Tyler Boyd was an extremely productive receiver for the Cincinnati Bengals, and had a serious dip in his production in his only year with the Tennessee Titans last year. Again, you look at the quarterback position, you look at just the Titans team, period, and it's not hard to see why Tyler Boyd's production dropped. I'm not saying he's still a number 2 wide receiver. Hell, I don't think Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper, or Tyler Boyd at this stage in their respective careers are number 2 receivers. But if you're the Saints, you're not necessarily looking for that. You're looking for situational guys that can provide a security blanket for Tyler Shuck or Spencer Rattler, whoever plays quarterback. You're talking about a young guy who needs that security blanket, that safety valve, that guy that they can always count on third downs or key situations. And all three of these guys are a little bit bigger than what they have on the roster and certainly more physical than what they have on the roster.
I like Tyler Boyd. I think that's a name that a lot of people are not discussing, not bringing up, to your point. I also like it because I think the name recognition of a Keenan Allen or an Amari Cooper brings unrealistic expectations for
no doubt
at this point in their career and how they fit with the New Orleans Saints at this point in their career. Where, no offense to Tyler Boyd, but doesn't bring the same name recognition, doesn't bring the same, like Pro Bowl level caliber player at points in the career. So I think Boyd would be a good option. Now, if the Saints went and got Amari Cooper, by all means, I'd be thrilled. But I don't know if the money's going to work, A, and B, like I said, I think there'd be some really unrealistic expectation because of the name Amari Cooper. And it'd be interesting to see at this point in his career what type of role Amari Cooper would accept. I think Keenan Allen's a bit later in his career and understands, hey, I'm going to be that situational guy that Bob was talking about. But Amari Cooper, who came off of a big contract in Cleveland, got traded halfway through the year, was supposed to be a big part of what Buffalo was doing, and finally getting Josh Allen, like a guy, during a playoff run, and it didn't really work out. And Amari's age showed up a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, hands weren't as sure as they used to be. I don't want to say he crumbled under the pressure because that's maybe not a fair assessment, but he didn't live up to what he was supposed to, making, I don't want to call it a blockbuster trade, but making a trade that made some noise around the league.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so I think, in my mind, if there's a team that goes, hey, Amari, we still want you to be receiver 2, he'd much rather have that opportunity for less money than he would coming to New Orleans knowing he's going to be a receiver 3 at best.
Yeah.
Let's move to quarterback. Not for free agency, but just because you said quarterback, and this comes from John Butler, a friend of ours, who tweeted today in regards to the quote-unquote quarterback competition that is going to ensue in New Orleans. John tweeted something along the lines of, I don't think you draft a quarterback at 40 if you think Rattler's the guy. So, do we agree with that? And how much of a quarterback competition are we really going to see this offseason?
I'll address the second part of that first. I don't believe, and we talked about it on our draft shows. I don't believe that Tyler Shuck is just going to be handed the job. I think Spencer Rattler will be given the legitimate opportunity to try to win it from him. but I think me choosing those words that way is something to focus on. Tyler Shuck has to be the favorite coming out of the gate. I'm pretty much looking at it as it's Tyler Shuck's job to lose, because like John said, and like we said, leading up to the draft, you don't draft a quarterback in the first round or the second round if you intend on sitting them on the bench. Um, the I said it. I don't know. I don't even know how many dozens of times that Spencer Rattler was not drafted by this current coaching regime. Spencer Rattler, to our knowledge, was not heavily scouted by this coaching regime because they were not, Kellen Moore, wherever he was at before, last year, Philadelphia, they weren't looking at a quarterback, pure, plain and simple. Doesn't mean they didn't scout him. Does mean they probably didn't look at any of the quarterbacks in last year's draft very heavily. So Kellen Moore has no stake in Spencer Rattler's career here. I was telling people exactly that. And I was saying that doesn't mean that Kellen Moore could have come into that facility when he was hired and said, you know what? I'm in love with Spencer Rattler. I think he's going to be perfect for the offense that I want to run. But I was telling people the only way we're going to know how Kellen Moore feels about Spencer, if Kellen Moore feels that way about Spencer Rattler, is if the Saints draft a quarterback in the first or second round. Well, lo and behold, they did. Again, Shuck's not going to be given, just anointed the starter, from the first day of mini camp, and then here we go. But I do think it is his job to lose.
Yeah, I agree. I think it would require the perfect potion, if you will, for Rattler to end up being the starter week one, right?
Mm-hmm.
It would have to be Rattler has like a flawless OTAs training camp and really produces in the preseason. Shuck would have to be atrocious or get injured, right? That's the only way I see Rattler being the day one starter or the week one starter. This is coming from a guy who still likes the prospects of Spencer Rattler a lot. But I that's the only way I see it happen is him, like I said, having that perfect potion, that perfect formula has to happen. So I'm with you there. I will address this when it comes to free agent quarterbacks. I still feel the Saints need a veteran presence. Carson Wentz has been brought up a few times by us. Teddy Bridgewater has been brought up a few times by us. If Teddy even wants that at this point in his career,
Mm-hmm.
Full high school coach, state champion. Maybe he doesn't necessarily want that. Maybe he'll wait like he did and tag on with Detroit or any other team late. Is there another quarterback outside those two names where you look at and you go, yeah, you know what, that veteran guy would maybe fit this team okay?
No. And I wrote about the list before the draft. There's none. I think the situation in Cleveland bears watching because, you have Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, and then two rookies in Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. I don't think that both Flacco and Pickett are going to make it out of training camp for the Browns. And by the way, Kenny Pickett was the backup in Philadelphia for Kellen Moore, Doug Nussmeier, and Scott Tolzien last year. So again, something to watch. Watching the situation for the New York Giants too. The Giants, who of course spent a first-round draft choice on Jackson Dart. Well, before doing that, they brought in two veterans, Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. I think everybody knows, and even the Jameis Winston haters will acknowledge that Jameis Winston loved New Orleans. So I think that if Jameis Winston comes up the short end of that competition in New York and he's released or asks for his release to go on where he could look for a better opportunity elsewhere, I could see a Jameis Winston winding up in New Orleans. But yeah, those two situations and, maybe a couple others throughout the league, barring releases, the only ones I see right now that would legitimately benefit the New Orleans Saints to bring in as veteran insurance and kind of that extra coach on the sidelines, for these young quarterbacks would be Teddy Bridgewater or Carson Wentz.
I think it would be interesting to watch some of those names. Remember, to tie this back, because you said Teddy Bridgewater again, the Saints acquired Teddy Bridgewater via trade after the preseason.
Mm-hmm.
Could they do the same with a Kenny Pickett? Could they do the same with a Jameis Winston or any other quarterback that is kind of a fringe, not even a fringe guy, but like for Teddy Bridgewater, it was one of those, okay, we have too many guys in the room. He probably deserves to be a backup somewhere. Let's trade him somewhere where, they're going to utilize him as a backup and we can get a little bit of a return. There's going to be a situation like that. You missed one name in Cleveland, just one. I don't know if he's ever played football again, but
I
have no idea. The downfall needs to be studied. I need like an E60 on potentially the next great quarterback in the league to where he is now. A lot of that is self-inflicted wounds.
Mm-hmm.
But man, I really thought that 2019 opener against the Saints, that shootout, Breeze and Watson, I really thought, oh man, this guy's going to be the next face of the league. But I digress. Hey, Anna, thanks for joining us. Jerry, thanks for joining us. Oh, Jerry, yeah. Thanks for the reminder. It's Cameron Jordan Day. Shout out Cameron.
It is?
Jordan. Shout out Cameron Jordan. Well deserved. Well deserved.
What did I miss? How is it Cameron Jordan Day?
It was announced. I'll have to pull it up, but it was announced that today was going to be Cameron Jordan Day via one city. Maybe it was New Orleans. I can't believe you missed it.
You know what? I'm trying to peddle my services throughout town to try to make more than $2.10 per article. So pounding the retail pavement, offering to cut old ladies' grass in the neighborhood. Things are bad. I missed. Maybe I'll take on a paper route.
You really just showed your age. Who still gets paper?
I know. Well, I mean, nobody reads online articles anymore, so why would they read the newspaper, right?
That's
so,
true.
Since
Council, by the way,
what's that?
New Orleans City Council is recognizing Jordan for his efforts in the community.
I mean, that's awesome.
Is Cameron Jordan? So shout out to Cameron.
Awesome.
You talked about Jameis Winston loving New Orleans. I'll go back to what Drew Brees said. Right, if you love New Orleans will love you back, and I think Cameron Jordan perfectly embodies that as well.
Yes.
A guy who from the jump loved New Orleans, continues to love New Orleans, wants to be a Saint for life, and then New Orleans loves him back wholeheartedly. So congratulations, Cam. Well-deserved honor. And well-deserved honor not because of the play on the field, even though the play on the field has been fantastic. It is solely everything he's done in the community, and being able to utilize the platform that he has to do so many wonderful things in the city of New Orleans and the state of Louisiana as a whole, which Bob and I know from the years that we've spent covering sports in general, not just football, but sports in general. It takes a really special person to do that, because there are a lot of guys that come and go through cities, or even guys that are lifers in some cities, and they don't do the same amount of things that Cameron Jordan has done, or what Drew Brees has done, or Mark Ingram. And the list goes on of great guys we can recognize.
Well, and speaking of platforms, the jersey right behind you, the couple of autographed football cards behind me, a good friend of ours, Delvin Bro, also very heavily involved with Get Checked or Check Out, has been on the original Go Black and Gold charity celebrity fan cruise more than a few times. Check out Delvin Bro's football camp. It's a co-ed football camp for kids. He's having 2 more sessions coming up. I believe they are May 24th and May 31st. I reposted the link on my own page, and for those of you that don't know, Delvin Bro is extremely active on Facebook as well. That's where I pulled the promo for his football camps coming up. He's done already a handful of them this spring, but there are 2 more before the end of the month. I know for a fact that there are still spots open. So look for the link on my page or Delvin's page. If you have a child, male or female, that would like to be involved in Delvin Bro's co-ed football camp.
Absolutely. Delvin, come on, promote the camp. We're happy to do so. You know that you're welcome whenever. You don't need an invite. You just pop on. So hopefully we have you on soon, and we can talk about the camp prior to, or you can discuss how great the camp was and encourage people to come out for the next one. All right, let's get back to it.
Well, you just brought up Cam Jordan, and no disrespect to Cam Jordan, the player, but let's talk about the pass rushers that are still out there.
Yeah.
I think we're both still in agreement that Cam is not as effective. He's not the Hall of Fame level of player that he once was, but he can still be effective on a rotational or a limited snap basis. And you have Chase Young on one side. I'm going to start calling him Chase Granderson because combined they produce almost the total of one really good edge rusher. But between Carl Granderson and Chase Young, you're not getting enough production there. The Saints seem to feel strongly enough about Chase that they re-signed him, didn't let him hit free agency this offseason. And I am interested to see how Chase is going to perform as a stand-up pass rusher in Brandon Staley's scheme. But New Orleans really didn't add anything significant in free agency or the draft. Chris Rumpf II, recently signed, played for Staley with the Chargers. He's more of a role piece, a rotational player. And they drafted Fadil Diggs from Syracuse. A lot of raw physical talent Diggs has, but he was a 7th round pick for a reason. So like Brendan and I say all the time, you don't draft guys. You don't look at your day 3 guys as contributors, starters, or even stars for sure. If you hit it, that just means that's like a lottery ticket. But you can't count on it. So do the Saints delve into, stick their toe back into the free agency market to try to find a veteran pass rusher? There are a few out there, names that will surprise people, but all of them are well on the downside of their career. The most recognizable name is future Hall of Famer Von Miller. Von's 36 and hasn't had a healthy season in 4 years. But when he's on the field, he can still rush the passer. Matt Judon did not have the impact a lot of people expected when he signed with the Falcons last year. Judon's 33 years old. Preston and Zadarius Smith, each 32 years old. Again, 32 is not old. At least I'm saying that at 52. I'm hoping 32 isn't old because that makes me ancient. But both Smiths have had a severe decline in their production over the last couple years. And DeMarcus Walker, a player that I was surprised was still available. He's just 30 years old. Excuse me. Now, he's been nicked up with injuries the last couple years, as has the other guys that I mentioned. So again, you're talking some big names, double-digit Pro Bowl appearances, when you combine these guys together. But none of them are the guys that are going to turn your defense around. But I think you said at the onset, Brendan, none of the guys that are still available in free agency, if you're counting on these guys to turn your year or turn your team around, then you're in deep, deep trouble. At this point, anybody that's signing these guys are just desperate for any kind of boost in a pass rush.
Absolutely. Real quick before it falls through the comments, Anna asked about Shuck and the number. She said, I see Shuck's wearing 9. No, he's wearing 6.
No, 6.
Flip it around. He did wear 9 at Louisville, but he will be wearing 6 with the Saints. And Thomas Morstead had a nice little note about that, saying, "Take 6. Go ahead and take 6. I hope it is good team as it was to me." So that's another guy who loved New Orleans wholeheartedly.
Yeah. Anna, jump on my. I don't know whether you're more. I know you are active on Facebook, but I don't know whether you're more active on Facebook or Twitter. But check out my page on either one. I'm not going to tell you the worthless organization that the article was printed through, but you could still click on the article from my own personal page. Back-to-back days, I released the article this morning. Was the Saints undrafted rookies have been assigned numbers. And yesterday afternoon, I released all the Saints rookie draft pick jersey numbers as well. But yeah, like Brendan said, Tyler Shuck is indeed wearing number 6. I outlined him in all the draft picks in yesterday's piece, and then all the undrafted rookie jersey numbers in this morning's piece.
There you go. Back to edge rushers. There's one name recently released that you didn't bring up. And I think it's worth bringing up because he's been tied to the Saints for countless years. You know where I'm going.
Yeah.
On Clowney. And the only reason I bring it up is because I think he fits the 3-4 better.
He does.
And if you want to take a flyer on a guy who cannot stick around anywhere for more than a year, there's a guy. Now, I think the Saints, to take your point about the quarterback and kind of flip it to defensive end, I think the draft told you everything we need to know about how the Saints feel about their edge rushers.
Yes, I agree.
They're very confident in what they have in them, which statements like that have scarred Bob and I, and probably a lot of you because of Sean Payton. They like what they have in the room. But you're right, they did financially invest into Chase Young, who I know we made the joke a lot of he just couldn't finish, right? Like how many sacks would he have if he didn't finish?
It's not a joke. It's fact.
It's true. But I think there was enough on tape that they liked to go, if we can, to use the soccer analogy, if you can make the final pass, like in soccer, if you can make the final pass to set yourself up to score, like sometimes that's all that's missing. And if you can figure that out, man, your whole team changes. And for Chase Young to switch back into what we think is a more natural position in the 3-4, and if they can figure it out and he can finish through the play, and whether that's half sacks, quarterback pressures, forcing the quarterback to step up in the pocket. I mean, we're looking at more than just sacks. Like if he can impact the pocket and force the quarterback to move somewhere else, whether he gets to him or somebody else does, boom, I think you have something good there, right? And I do think moving back to outside linebacker opposed to a traditional defensive end is going to help him. Now, the other interesting part of that is you brought up Carl Granderson. I don't think Granderson fits very well as an outside linebacker, right? So he's going to be an end in that 3-4, just like I think Cameron Jordan better fits there at this point in his career as well. So if you can get Cam Jordan and then Granderson, Chase Young on the outside, and then whoever you want on the other side, man, you might have something there. If those guys produce at that level in those what I like to call NASCAR packages on third down, when you're really bringing pressure at the quarterback. I understand why the Saints like what they have. Like I said, Clowney would be interesting if you want to take a flyer and it'd be cheap. Zadarius Smith, I think, would be really interesting, depending on what type of market he gets. I don't see Von Miller in New Orleans. I think I can't speak for Von Miller, but in my brain, Von Miller's going to want to go and do one of two things. Either go back and finish his career in Denver with a team that made the playoffs last year, or he's going to go ring chasing.
Yeah, I think so too.
That's what I foresee for a guy like Vaughn. Zadarius Smith, like you said, maybe the production hasn't been as good as it had been in years past, but man, he's kicked the Saints' butt a few times.
Yeah, he has.
Like single-handedly kicked the Saints' butt. He's got a good motor, tremendous player, like you said, on the back end of his career, but a guy that if he understands his role. And that's the hardest thing now because, and this is going to be me sounding old, which Bob's going to laugh at and think it's impossible that I sound old. But like 20 years ago, we didn't have as many conversations of like understand your role, right? Like egos, social media, all that stuff has kind of ballooned heads of people a little bit to where they think, oh, like I deserve to be the superstar. I deserve the big money. Or I deserve, even while they're in their 30s and latter part of their career. So any of those guys that you mentioned, like if they can understand what their role is within the team and play it effectively, it could be a good fit. But that's as much of the issue as anything is having guys understand and accept and execute their role to the best of their abilities, right? So I don't hate any of those guys you brought up. I think the Saints will be limited because of the other names already on the roster on who they can convince to come in. So it'll be interesting to see. Let's talk about the defensive backfield. Because, man, what a shift from when we were sitting and having this conversation last year. Talking about, on paper, the Saints could be one of the best secondaries in football. So we're all of a sudden, well, now you don't have Paulson and Debo. You don't have Marshawn. Tyrann Mathieu, while he can still make some plays, is certainly not the player he once was. And yes, you got Alontae Taylor, who's had his moments. Kool-Aid McKinstry, I think, had a lot of trial by fire last year. It impressed me a lot.
Yeah.
But on the back end, you still have questions, even with the Justin Reed signing and this, that, and the other. So my question to you, Bob, is do the Saints go out? We've talked to Asante Samuel Jr. a lot. Hey, that makes a lot of sense. Is there another name that makes sense? And then to bring up the guy I threw on the thumbnail, because he's still a free agent. He had some really bad years the last few years. But does a guy like Marcus Williams make sense in coming back to New Orleans at all for a secondary that could use a true ball hawk?
Yeah, they could definitely use a true ball hawk back there, especially to go along with Tyrann Mathieu. I would love to bring Marcus Williams back to New Orleans. And again, like you said, he isn't the same player he was when he left for Baltimore as a free agent a couple years back. As a matter of fact, if you recall, folks, he didn't naturally hit free agency this offseason. The Ravens released him. And have shown no inclination that they want to bring him back. Remember that they benched him last year. But I think Marcus Williams still has some football left in him. And I think just like we talked about with the edge rushers, if you bring in a Marcus Williams, it's because you have a specific role in mind. It's as a deep safety back there with Tyrann Mathieu. Kind of let the two of them see the field from a split level rather than a single high spot. And in doing so, you could move Justin Reed around. Because if you all have been paying attention to me since the pick was made, I probably have the least amount of confidence of anybody in Who Dat Nation about Jonas Sanker, the third-round pick. Now, maybe I'm wrong. And if the Saints believe I'm wrong, then there's no chance that Marcus Williams is going to be brought in, because your three safeties are going to be Tyrann Mathieu, Justin Reed, and Sanker, whether I like it or not. And given that Sanker was a third-round pick, tells you that the Saints obviously felt pretty highly about him. If it's me personally, I bring Marcus Williams in for his ball hawking skills. But I think if the Saints address the secondary, it's probably more likely to be at the cornerback position. Now, you mentioned Asante Samuel. Two other names that I'll be watching closely are going to be James Bradbury and Emmanuel Mosley. Kendall Fuller and Mike Hilton are interesting too, because those guys, and I keep having to tell myself, I'm like, this is not, and you brought it up during the draft coverage, this is no longer Dennis Allen's defense. And what I mean by that is Dennis Allen liked to play a lot of aggressive press man coverage with his corners. Um, well, given that in years past, there's been no way in hell that I would even put Kendall Fuller or Mike Hilton on a list of potential New Orleans Saints targets because they're zone corners. They're two deep corners, however you want to off-ball corners, however you want to word it. They're certainly not man corners. But Brandon Staley's defense in the past has been more off-ball heavy, far more off-ball heavy than it has been press man. That's why Asante Samuel fits so well. James Bradbury, similar type of system in Philadelphia, so I think he would work there. And Fuller, Hilton. Don't get me wrong. I like the fourth round pick, Quincy Riley, the cornerback from Louisville. I love Kool-Aid McKinstry. But if they bring in another cornerback, especially a guy like Asante Samuel, who is very familiar with Brandon Staley's defense, he not only played for Staley for 3 or 4 years, Staley drafted him. So, I mean, those two have been hooked from the hip almost from the start. But if you bring in another cornerback that can play right away, then what you get to do is you move Alontae Taylor around. Alontae Taylor played the best football of his career, certainly the best football since his rookie year, early last season, over the first third to half part of the season, because he was allowed to roam a little bit. Everybody wants to say, oh, he's a better slot corner than outside. I don't know about that, but I know he was a havoc creator when they moved him around, when they used him as a blitzer, when they sprinkled in a little bit of outside with a little bit of slot and a little bit of off ball, a little bit of hybrid safety. If you bring in another cornerback, that's exactly what you can do with Alontae Taylor. And then that removes the who's the third safety going to be conversation completely out of the equation because it's Alontae Taylor. Alontae Taylor is suddenly your third cornerback or your third safety. He is that kind of hybrid and that kind of versatility.
There was a point early last year where Alontae Taylor led the team in sacks. He had like 3 sacks for the first 3 weeks, which was just funny between the money they spent with Chase Young and obviously Cameron Jordan. Just had that conversation. But, no, you're absolutely right. And I'm glad you brought it up again because I think for us covering the team and then certainly your diehards in the Houdat Nation, it wasn't just this last like 2.5 years with Dennis Allen where you saw this prototype at corner. It's been a decade, right? Going back to, you pointed out Delvin Breaux's jersey once, so I'll point it out again. Like going back to Delvin Breaux's playing days, playing for DA, right? That was the type of corner we were going to get. Press man-to-man coverage. And it never really varied from that. And the guys that did vary from that did not last in New Orleans very long. Some of those guys had a couple good weeks or put together a good half a year, but it didn't last. The longevity wasn't there for guys that didn't play that type of coverage. Well, now, like you said, you have to like retrain your mind when you're scouting players and you're thinking, can this guy fit? Because it is completely different. And hopefully this year is a good cleanse and reset for us because it's not just a completely different defensive back you're looking for; it's a completely different defense you're looking at.
Yeah.
The Saints haven't ran a 3-4 in a long time.
2012.
There you go. I was going to say definitely more than a decade. So. Rob Ryan? No, 2012? No, that wasn't Rob.
No, that was Spags. The year the Spagnola was in. Did Rob Ryan? I think Rob Ryan ran a hybrid.
Yeah.
Because both Ryans ran a hybrid of Buddy Ryan's 46. Which wasn't really a four. It was more of a 4-man front than a 3-man front. But they just had rushers coming at you from everywhere. I would not call Rob Ryan's defense a 3-4.
Hybrid's good. Hybrid's good. And like you said, rushers are coming from everywhere. You didn't know where Junior Gillette was half the time.
Neither did he.
Oh, Bobo. Still sharp on his feet. All right, let's close out the show. Is there a position we've missed that you really wanted to get to? We talked linebacker a little bit, but especially with the draft, I don't know if it's as much of a glaring thing now.
Yeah, because I mean, we both like Danny Stutzman, the Oklahoma linebacker, the 4th-round pick. Yeah, and then very old school linebacker. But again, the type of the prototype that Brandon Staley has always preferred, that Denzel Perryman type. And an undrafted rookie to watch. Speaking of linebackers, is Tareem Powell from Rutgers. Again, a big, physical, downhill guy. So I'm not going to say that the Saints are comfortable with what they have in that room, but it's clear that Demario Davis can still play ball. I think Pete Werner is going to perform pretty well in this system. And Stutzman, they tabbed Stutzman for basically their third linebacker, their third off-ball linebacker. If they add another guy, at the second level, I think it's going to be a stand-up edge rusher that'll be titled linebacker in name only.
Okay. No, I think we've really covered all of it. No, because draft. I was gonna say running back, but no draft. There's no questions at running back.
Well, I mean, Devin Neal was a 6th-round pick. And while we both like him, a lot of Who Dat Nation likes him. Shocking amount of Who Dat Nation loves this 6th-round pick. But very good value. Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, Cam Akers, and Chris Evans are still available on the free agent market. Now, Akers and Evans have both had injury issues. Same with Dobbins. Dobbins for sure. But Dobbins. Never mind. I was gonna say Dobbins played for Kellen Moore with the Chargers. That'd be untrue. Dobbins was in Baltimore. But Gus Edwards, I think, would be a great fit for this offense. I don't think you'd see the Saints pursue any of those backs until they get a look at not only Devin Neal, but Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and perhaps even Kendre Miller if he could stay healthy for more than 2 consecutive practices. Till they get a look at those guys through OTAs into June. If they get a look at them, those are just shorts and shells, grant you. But if they kind of like what they see there, then you probably don't see any of these veteran guys being pursued. If they don't, and any or all of these guys are still there come mid-June, early July before training camp begins, then I wouldn't be surprised to see the Saints make a move there. I don't see it for the immediate future.
Yeah, I don't either. Maybe this is me holding too much stock in Kendre Miller still, because I'm one of the few people in the world that still have stock in Kendre Miller. I think Neal's going to push him, but I also see a situation where Clyde's the odd man out, or Clyde's the guy practice squatter, and just gets the call up occasionally, when need be. I could see a situation where the Saints go back to that 3-headed rushing attack, where, I mean, it's a heavy dose of Alvin Kamara, obviously, but you're also relying on Kendre and Neal too to provide a little bit of a change of pace. I think a lot of people forget, because he hasn't played, is like Kendre Miller's not a small, scat backy guy, and neither is Devin Neal. So I think both those guys have the capability of running between the tackles at an effective rate. I think they can both catch the ball a lot better than maybe some scouted them to. But I just don't see, like you said, I don't see an immediate need there. Something could change, but I don't see an immediate need. I love J.K. Dobbins. I think some of it's because I don't remember the commentator. Because of the noise level, I want to say it was Gus Johnson, but it probably wasn't Gus Johnson. But there was one college run at Ohio State where J.K. Dobbins busted, so you could hear the enormous amount of excitement in the commentator's voice. So
it had to be Gus Johnson. He does every single friggin' Ohio State or Michigan game, doesn't he?
Maybe it was Gus Johnson. Maybe it was. Who, by the way, some people hate him because of the level of excitement. Gus Johnson's fun. And if you're commentating, this is coming from a guy who commentated, 10 years of NCAA sports. Have fun. Good Lord.
Yeah.
I hate the people that are like, you gotta sound professional. And I was like, no, shut up. Like, it's sports. We're supposed to have fun. Dang it. But I digress. Guys, thanks so much for tuning in on a Wednesday on a Thursday show. Bob, I'll give you the opportunity if you want to. No?
Nope.
No? Okay. That's Bob.
Nope.
Follow him on Twitter.
You can follow me, folks. And what's left of my works on Bob Rose on Facebook, at BobbyR2613 on Twitter. We still have the Bayou Blitz Facebook page going strong. So if you're already a member of that, thank you. If you aren't, please join up or get other friends, family, Saints fans, add them in. We want to continue to make that group grow. Remember to check out the Get Checked or Check Out website as well. Don't forget that May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So if you're having troubles, I know we joke about it. This is no joke. I'm currently dealing with some serious issues, potentially serious mental issues myself. Just know that there's help out there, and Get Checked or Check Out their website. If you need somebody to talk to, develop a support system. Reach out and keep reaching out to people until you get what you need. Your first phone call might not do it. Then make a second one, make a third one. Remember, you're not going through this alone. There's other people that are dealing with similar things that you are, and you have friends and family members in your life that care very much about you, all of you. So just remember that. And we're going to continue to focus on May as Mental Health Awareness Month.
Yeah, absolutely. As someone who was diagnosed with clinical depression, I know that there are a lot of times where you feel as if no one understands, no one gets it. There's a lot of times where you feel anxious, you feel alone. There are days where you wake up and it's like a cartoon where the cloud of rain just follows you everywhere you go, and it doesn't matter what you do, who you're around, what's going on. Just the world feels like it's closing in on you. It sucks, but guess what? There are people out there that A, do completely understand how you feel. B, there are people, whether it be friends, whether it be family, whether it be two random dudes that you listen to a podcast to weekly, that genuinely care about you. My DMs are always open. If you guys need anything, just someone to chat with. DMs are open. Now, Bob and I sometimes are busy human beings, and it may not be an instant response, but we are going to get to it. So please remember those things. Get checked or check out. Go onto their website. Reach out to the people in your lives that you know and love. And if you really need somebody, like I said, our DMs are always open. So please reach out. Know that you're not alone. And with that, you can also follow me on social media at BT Boylan. We'll be posting some work over there. A mutual friend of ours has some sort of, international film festival that he directs, and he's asked me to be involved in that again. So we'll have some stuff as soon as the selections are official. We'll be posting some of that, posting some pictures and video and all that stuff from the festival itself. So make sure to check us out for that as well. So until next week and another week of what we call the dead period of Saints football. Bob, last year we talked about random stuff for a couple of weeks, so we need to get together and we need to figure out what random things we're talking about, reminiscing on good times or whatever, and just have a good times only type of podcast. But until next week, I hope you guys find some peace, spread love, practice positivity. And we'll see you for another episode of the Bayou Blitz podcast later. Who dat?